The protagonist. More often than not, the main character can make or break their whole series as just one face in the entirety of its world's history, being the character we're supposed to empathize with and relate to the most while we watch them struggle and grow, sometimes literally, as they age from children into adulthood and go on to start families with offspring that grow to be just as strong as themselves. Very few characters really emphasize that feeling of struggle and growth like Naruto and Ichigo, especially within Battle Shonen. Though these two aren't incredibly similar in their characters or personalities, there are a lot of parallels between both series and their feats that make this matchup interesting or contentious. And contentious it certainly is. Everyone who's seen both series or are at least somewhat knowledgeable of both Naruto and Ichigo's capabilities have very strong opinions for either side. Reading any Naruto vs Ichigo thread or comment section inevitably leads to incessant laughter from some hilarious downplay and wank for both sides, from people who just do not know how to scale or anything about either or even both series. I didn't actually know if I was going to cover this topic or not, even after making my first Naruto Bleach crossverse video, Itachi vs Byakuya, but after seeing so many people say so many absurd things on both sides, getting a comment on the aforementioned Itachi vs Byakuya video requesting this, and then seeing a certain Naruto vs Ichigo animation project get postponed indefinitely, I thought to myself, screw it, why not? I'm going to try to cover this match as concisely and as all-encompassing as possible, hoping I leave no stone unturned and hoping I don't get any comments telling me I'm biased for either side like we're in 7th grade. I like Naruto, I like Boruto, and I like Bleach. Although I do prefer Ichigo because I think he's much cooler, Naruto isn't a bad character by any means, and I honestly believe he's somewhat underrated in terms of his writing as a protagonist. That, however, is another topic for another video or another day. For this video, I will be pitting true Shikai Ichigo, or the Ichigo that approached Yuha in chapter 673, against Naruto from the last, or basically just teenage 6-pass sage mode Naruto. It might seem strange as to why I'm not using adult Ichigo and Hokage Naruto, but Naruto has only grown exponentially stronger in Boruto, to the point where he could more than likely one-shot his teenage self in 6 paths pretty casually, then getting an entirely new form with Baryon mode that potentially amps him by billions of times if you decide to use Kurama's nuclear fusion analogy literally. This is in comparison to Ichigo, who more than likely hasn't done any training since he became an adult, and there is nothing in chapter 686 or the 2021 one-shot to suggest he would be any stronger than he is in the Thousand Year Blood War arc. I am also going manga canon only for both series, since the canonicity of the Naruto novels is questionable, and while some Bleach novels are potentially canon to the point that their characters have even been adapted in some of the games, as well as Shinji's Bankai from the novels being added to the new Thousand Year Blood War anime, Kubo's involvement in the writing of the novels is similarly questionable. And there are some inconsistent claims and wacky moments, like Genjo being nearly blitzed and damaged by an attack described as far slower than a lightning strike, but the term lightning speed can only be used to describe it. I just don't feel like dealing with the contradictions or absurdities, so if there's something in the novels where Sasuke is actually omnipotent or Renji has inaccessible speed, just know it's not being used and I don't care. Now with all that out of the way, let's start off the discussion by diving into Ichigo's attack potency. Ichigo grew up fairly normal with his 2 sisters and his father, coming home to his father's clinic from school every day after spending time with his friends. But there was one thing about Ichigo that made him stand out from his peers. He could see and speak to spirits, even becoming a sort of guardian for them, defending them from the disrespect and disregard for the dead from other unaware residents of Karakura Town. But a different kind of spirit finding its way into Ichigo's room one fateful night would change his life forever. Rukia Kuchiki is a soul reaper, responsible for finding wayward souls, whether they be simple spirits or monstrous hollows, and helping them find their way back to the Soul Society for their life after death. Ichigo would soon take up the position of Soul Reaper himself to aid Rukia after she had saved him and his family from a hollow, only getting stronger and stronger as each challenge to protect others came his way, since, after watching his mother die before his eyes, Ichigo began to grow insecure from a young age about his weakness and vulnerability, feeling that if he cannot protect those who he cares for, then neither he nor his life serve any purpose. While these are very deep-seated and complex emotions for developing young men to be exploring in a battle shonen, I think that this serves wonderfully as a base for Ichigo's character, turning the tired trope of the shonen protagonist wanting to protect their friends no matter what into a play on the inherent, deep-rooted, almost primal desire to protect and provide within men. This also manifests itself in Ichigo's relationship with his Zanpakuto, or soul cutter, Zangetsu. Every Soul Reaper has one, being able to talk to or even have very personal, intimate relationships with their Zanpakuto, and Ichigo is no exception to this. Zangetsu serves as almost a second father figure to Ichigo, teaching him how to harness his spiritual pressure or Reiatsu into attacks like the infamous Getsuga Tensho, or eventually teaching him how to use his equally iconic Bankai to surpass a captain of the Gote 13, a leading group of fierce, battle-hardened Soul Reapers who have lived for hundreds or even thousands of years. Though Zangetsu loves to see Ichigo develop and become strong, he struggled with the fact that with each new milestone of growth in his power, Ichigo would eventually become too strong for him to shelter, as although Ichigo desires to defend and protect, this desire and the insecurities derived from it weigh heavily on Zangetsu as well, saying, quote, "I hate the rain. When your heart is in chaos, the sky becomes terribly easy. Can you understand the horror of being pelted by rain in this solitary world? If only to stop the rain, I shall lend you any strength. If you trust in me, I will let no rain fall in this world. Trust me, you are not fighting alone." End quote. As Ichigo trains with him in the Dangai in order to put an end to Aizen's reign of terror, Zangetsu cannot help but break out into tears over the fact that this will be the last time he will ever see Ichigo, as he lay dormant within him for his entire life. Only now that he is able to protect Ichigo as he desired, that he is being taken away and separated from him. This separation made all the more ominous by the hollow deep within Ichigo, who pushes and manipulates Zangetsu to make Ichigo strong, declaring that one day, Ichigo's power will be his own. Ichigo would eventually regain his power, alongside aiding the Shinigami during time of war, and after learning the reality of his Quincy heritage that led to the heartbreaking revelation of Zangetsu's true nature, Ichigo would overcome these bleak personal truths to attain his true, unrestricted Shikai form, which is what we will be covering today. But before I talk about where I believe Ichigo scales, I'd like to go over all of the false and just outright bad arguments I see people use to scale Bleach characters much higher than they actually are, and go over in detail about why they ignore basic context and shouldn't be used in cross-verse matchups like this. First up, and probably one of the most hotly debated due to various translations of the Thousand-Year Blood War, the Mukin is a dark, essentially cave-like prison underneath the Squad 1 barracks, where they hold even the likes of Aizen, arguably the greatest rogue and criminal the Soul Society has ever known. Unohana and Kenpachi fight inside of it to train Kenpachi for a rematch with the Stern Ritter army. Before they fight, however, Unohana states something about the Mukin that varies depending on who or what you ask. In chapter 523 of the original manga, she says that the Mukin is almost infinitely large. In episode 9 of the new Thousand-Year Blood War anime, the almost is dropped entirely to state that the Mukin is just infinitely large. The reason I mention the anime is because many Bleach fans state that the new anime is now a more credible source than the original manga because it is not being rushed by Shonen Jump and Kubo has more direct involvement than he did with the anime previously. I prefer to go manga canon only for everything that I scale, but I am admittedly neutral to this idea and do not care one way or the other. The manga does have many strange translation mishaps, like Lolebaro stating that he is the last Quincy to be bestowed power from Yuha, when he is in fact the first. But regardless, the Mukin isn't impressive in either interpretation for the one-word translation difference to matter. The reason why people use the Mukin for determining Bleach characters' attack potency is because there are various characters stating that they will destroy the Soul Society, or the Soul Society is going to be destroyed, etc. and so forth. They then include the Mukin as a part of the Soul Society to say that these characters are destroying an infinite space, which would scale to the upper tiers of universal levels of power. However, not only does Unohana state that the Mukin is completely closed off, meaning it is not connected to the Soul Society, so anyone destroying it would not be destroying the Mukin by extension, but the Soul Society and the world of the living are also stated to be parallel worlds several times in multiple sources throughout Bleach's history. And never is it hinted or implied that the world of the living could be infinitely sized or contain an infinite space. Unohana's use of the word infinite could also mean notably vast or just a great amount of something, as opposed to literally non-finite, since she uses it in an adjective to describe how large the Mukin spreads for, and therefore it could be hyperbolic or not meant to be taken at face value. For example,
seriously, go back and rewatch the first Iron Man, a movie made 15 years ago with half the budget, and it'll look infinitely better than this.
This is used in the same way you could describe someone who is found guilty of doing something heinous as committing an unspeakable evil when you can in fact speak about it. But finally, there is also a databook statement directly confirming that it only tricks you into believing that it is infinitely sized, which is pretty blatant. Aizen's higher plane statement regarding Mugetsu is not indicative of any higher dimensional scaling. For one, it is quite clearly hyperbolic, and Aizen is so enraptured in utter disbelief at this new gap in power between he and Ichigo that the only way he can even begin to think to describe it is as if Ichigo exists on another plane of reality. If Ichigo was truly on a higher dimension than Aizen wouldn't be able to see or interact with him in any capacity, and the same goes for Aizen when he first evolves with the Hogyoku against Isshin, Yoruichi, and Urahara, or even Ichigo's friends who he is actively trying to kill in order to force Ichigo to get stronger. The dimensional portion of the statement also says, just as two-dimensional entities cannot interfere with three-dimensional entities, with the just as portion of the statement likening it to a simile or metaphor. Bleach fans also use the Sogyoku from all the way back in the Soul Society arc in order to scale that Shikai Ichigo to planetary, as Aizen states in a letter to Momohina Mori that it is capable of destroying the Soul Society. But Ichigo never even faces the Sogyoku at full power. It completely stops when Ichigo gets in its way because it is specifically trying to execute the criminal Rukia and not Ichigo. Also keep in mind that literally everything happening is a part of Aizen's plan. Aizen would not let Ichigo destroy the Sogyoku as it would come between he and his plan of vaporizing Rukia with it in order to take the Hogyoku from her body. He would also not let the Sogyoku attack Ichigo or potentially kill him, as he wants Ichigo to get stronger so that he can give Aizen an even fight, and Aizen is deeply invested in his growth. The Sogyoku can also increase its power by several dozen times if necessary, and you cannot prove that the weaker 1 million version that Ichigo faces is capable of destroying the Soul Society, but that is also assuming the Sogyoku is actually capable of destroying the Soul Society in the first place, as the letter in which Aizen states this is meant to manipulate and fabricate turmoil against the Soul Reapers for his plan. Therefore, he is lying and his words should not be taken at face value. I've heard the argument of, well, if in the same letter he said that the sky is blue, would that be a lie? Which obviously, no, that specific of a statement in the letter would not be a lie, but how does this apply to the other statement at all? If Aizen said this, one part of the letter would be true, but the rest of it would still be a lie. This argument hinges on the idea that the statement of the Sogyoku destroying the Soul Society is already inherently true, when it first has to be proven to be true, since Aizen's entire letter is blatantly a fabrication and false narrative to make his lieutenant Momo turn against Toshiro. There is also the argument that no one contests that it can destroy the Soul Society, so therefore it should be able to. But it would make no sense or be appropriate for anyone in this situation to actually stop what's going on and be like,
hey guys, I don't actually think the Sogyoku could destroy the whole Soul Society. I don't know, that doesn't really seem possible to me, to be honest.
While Toshiro is standing there in utter disbelief at what he's being accused of. His childhood friend before him with her Zanpakuto drawn to his face as she shakes, breaking down in tears, thinking that he killed her captain and the man she is practically in love with. The only other people there besides the two are also Kira and Gin. Gin, who is in on Aizen's plan, and Kira, who will listen to Gin, as he is his lieutenant. Toshiro also notes that the only reason Momo even believes the letter in the first place is because she is too upset to think straight or rationally about the situation. The term Soul Society can also refer to multiple things, but I will address this more so in a bit. Ulquiorra destroying the Caja Negacion dimension scales nowhere, as the dimension was designed as punishment for the Fraccione and is specifically stated to not be able to hold an espada, much less an espada 2 levels above Grimmjow, meaning it is vulnerable to certain types of Reiatsu or should be able to be broken by anyone who scales to an espada or higher, and does not have the properties of an entirely different realm or time space. The same is true for Stern Ritter Quillgate Opie Shrift, J or the Jail, which similarly cannot contain quincies and is more a construct made from reishi as opposed to a full-blown new dimension or time space. There is also Fullbringer Yukio's pocket dimension containing a Karakura Town replica. similarly to Aizen's creation of Las Noches. Ichigo destroys it by going Bankai inside of it, but this is just a pocket dimension of a town, not a full-blown universe. And as spiritual pressure is known to negate hacks throughout Bleach, it's more than likely the case that Ichigo's much stronger spiritual pressure negated Yukio's hacks, just like Ulquiorra and the Kaha Negacion. The star inside is also just the background, and the same is true for the fake sun that Aizen makes within Las Noches, as Las Noches has been repeatedly calced to be a country in size, and even if you ignore this, there is no way Aizen would be able to fit a legitimate star or sun that close to the Hueco Mundo planet, let alone having it that close without killing most of the characters present at that point in the story. The Grimmy arguments are honestly just so out of control, and I think it's due in part to the fact that the fight has yet to be animated. During his fight with Kenpachi, when he's exhausted all of his options, Grimmy clones himself 6 times and tries to finally put Kenpachi down using the void of outer space. While some would argue that Grimmy created a galaxy or even a universe here, I personally believe that Grimmy opened a portal to the void of outer space outside of the Soul Society planet. For one, if Grimmy really created a galaxy, it would have enveloped the atmosphere of the Serite entirely and killed not only Kenpachi but Grimmy as well, or at least his human body. Kubo's art also more so portrays it as the 7 Grimmies pulling or ripping something open, as opposed to the earlier meteor just straight up appearing out of thin air when 2 Grimmies imagine it. The 7 Grimmies also have to hold it open, and it is only after they put their hands back in their pockets that it starts to close and Kenpachi cuts Grimmy from the other side, grabbing onto it like an entrance or opening, which he would not be able to do to avoid. It is also worth noting that it takes 2 of Grimmy or for his imagination to be doubled for him to summon this meteor, meaning his imagination has limits. 3 other Sternrooter, 2 of which should be stronger than himself, are also visibly quite afraid when he summons it. Asking Nuclear questions if something like this is even possible, and Jugram even thinks that Yuha needs protection from it, so it would make no sense for Grimmy to be galaxy level when these 2 who are much stronger than himself find this meteor to be a threat to their safety. The only reason Grimmy would survive in comparison being that he imagined himself surviving. As he states, the only counter to the idea that Grimmy opened a portal is this novel scan saying he materialized outer space itself within the Serite. But notice the itself. The word itself implies that there is something prior or something that had existed beforehand, meaning Grimmy had materialized the already existing outer space outside of the atmosphere of the Serite, rather than creating an entirely new outer space. If it takes 2 Grimmies just to create a meteor, there's no way in hell that 7 Grimmies would be able to create even a solar system, let alone a galaxy or a universe. The Hellverse movie is blatantly not canon, and anyone with an IQ above freezing would be able to see that. I have no idea how this myth or argument has perpetrated for so long throughout the Bleach community when it's very known that Tite Kubo does not like this movie to the point that he wanted his name removed from the credits since Studio Perion didn't use any of his ideas or concepts for the script, and he even describes it as hell for him in one of his opening manga volume statements. Even if you ignore all of this movie has no way at all to fit into the Bleach story, as Ichigo attains the Vasto Lorde form in his fight with Ulquiorra before he immediately leaves for the world of the living to fight Aizen, where he then realizes he isn't strong enough and trains in the Dangai. Once he leaves, he returns and uses the final Getsuga Tensho, which forfeits all of his spiritual pressure alongside his Soul Reaper abilities. Therefore, there is no way for Ichigo to ever go to Hell with access to this Vasto Lorde form, or for the events of Hellverse to ever take place within the canon of the Bleach manga. The characters also have no recollection or further mention of the events that transpire within the Hellverse movie, which is pretty strange. Ichigo rampaging through Hell as the Vasto Lorde is something I imagine many characters in the cast would undoubtedly remember or comment on later. The only thing that could at all suggest this movie is canon is Kubo saying that the Ichigo vs Ulquiorra fight in the beginning was a better iteration than the manga, and was more so what he envisioned when he created it. But even then, that's not saying that the entire movie is canon, just that he prefers the movie's iteration of this specific fight scene artistically. Bleach's cosmology is really ambiguous or up to interpretation, and it's honestly just because of how deeply people want to read into the phrase world or scenes meant for comedy to unironically scale these characters. In English, the Oxford Languages Dictionary defines world as the earth, together with all of its countries, peoples, and natural features, with its synonyms being earth, globe, or planet. In Japanese, the phrase world directly translates to the term sekai. Although the English phrase world directly translates to the Japanese word sekai, the Japanese word sekai can translate in English to either universe, society, or world. Characters refer to the 3 main settings of the story, that being the world of the living, the Soul Society, and Hueco Mundo as the 3 realms or 3 worlds, both in the manga and in some of the novels, with the collection of these realms as a whole being described as the universe, at least in the Viz translations. The Oxford Languages Dictionary defines realm as a kingdom, and its second definition defines it as a field or domain of activity or interests. Synonyms include phrases like province, territory, country, or land. There is, however, a Japanese word that directly translates to universe, and the term is uchu. As far as I know, the term uchu has never been used to describe these realms in the raw scans of the manga, and it is always the kanji for sekai. Even though the world of the living alongside the Soul Society actually have the words world and society in their name, they still obviously hold more than just planets, as they have day and night cycles with stars visible in the sky, and the existence of other planets has been hinted at or suggested a few times in the story, making the realms, in my opinion, at least solar systems in size if they are lowballed. The Soul Society is not infinite, as the only thing suggesting such is the Mukin, which I've already addressed. The world of the living is also not infinite, as it and the Soul Society are stated to be parallel worlds several times. The only statement suggesting Hueco Mundo could be infinite is a statement reading, quote, "The endless night and white sand are its landscape main and almost only details. The moon is forever a mirror of the human world's moon. The endless night and white sand refers to the fact that it is always night in Hueco Mundo, similarly to how it is always daytime on planet Namek from Dragon Ball. In the same sentence, it also says the night and white sand are almost its only details, meaning it is not literally endless, but the white sand makes up most of the Hueco Mundo planet. Taking this statement at face value is also contradicted by another databook statement saying a large portion of Hueco Mundo is covered by desert, which there cannot be a large portion of something that is never ending or limitless. The Valley of Screams is also not infinite, as the Soul Society and the world of the living are still somehow bigger than it, as shown in even Kubo's drawings. The only thing suggesting that the Valley of Screams could be infinite is a statement from Gonryu in the canon Memories of Nobody movie, where in one translation he says, "We have an infinite number of souls at our disposal." For one, infinite again can also just mean an exaggerated large amount of something as opposed to literally non-finite. But the translation in the version of the film I could find says, "The number of souls is always constant." Constant meaning occurring continuously over a period of time, or a situation or state of affairs that does not change. I think this translation makes the most sense considering the context of what the blanks, the souls Gonryu is talking about, really are, being wayward souls who are lost in the Guy on their way to the Soul Society after death. Considering that around 150,000 people die every day in our real world, it's inevitable that some of the souls that die may get lost on their way to the Soul Society. Therefore, more blanks are being continuously created over time, and that is a situation that does not change. None of the realms are infinite, and the only things suggesting such are metaphorical, hyperbolic, or contradicted and easily disproved by other facts and statements throughout the series. Now, I have made this map for what I have personally interpreted the Bleach cosmology to be, based off the information we are given. As stated within the series, the Soul Society and the world of the living are directly connected, only being separated by the Dangai, which you can almost interpret as a hallway between the two realms. Surrounding the Dangai is the Valley of Screams, and disconnected from them is Hueco Mundo. The Dangai is not connected to Hueco Mundo, so those who wish to travel to it do so through the Garganta. The size of the Garganta is up for debate, as it has been described to be infinitely expanding in the novels, but it would obviously seem that way since it's a featureless black void without any details other than containing the three realms. But I don't really care to get into how big the Garganta is, as it's not really relevant to any of my scaling here. Now, to go over where I believe this Ichigo actually scales, there is already the infamous feat of Yamamoto activating his Bankai, evaporating all of the moisture in the atmosphere across the Soul Society as a result, which is pretty impressive considering that this Yamamoto is not at full power, as he is missing an arm and is merely standing there with his Bankai activated, yet is somehow still managing to have a life-wiping effect on the entire planet. Unohana, someone who knows Yamamoto pretty well, as she is the longest serving captain and the last remaining of the original Gotei 13, also states that his power has the capability to destroy the Soul Society in its entirety. Some interpret this to mean the entire Soul Society realm, but I personally do not, as we are not shown that it affects that large of an area, and we are more so shown the atmosphere of the Soul Society with its clouds. A similarly not at full power Yuha is then the only Quincy strong enough to contain Yamamoto's Bankai, and Yuha then goes on to get stronger as he invades the Soul Palace and awakens his almighty ability that decimates Ichibei, someone who is stated to be stronger than Yamamoto and also has abilities with a demonstrated life-wiping planetary range. Yuha gets even stronger after he absorbs the Soul King and the Mimihagi, this being the version of Yuha that Ichigo fights. Now, admittedly, Yuha is suppressing himself for most of it, as he wants to enjoy fighting with Ichigo and is therefore suppressing his almighty ability that directly amplifies his strength, as seen when he goes on from getting essentially ragged on by Ichibei to then one-shotting him once his almighty eyes are opened. Similarly to his second fight with Ichigo, where he can contend with Yuha fairly well, but the gap starts to widen whenever Yuha opens his almighty eyes. Ichigo only manages to kill him when he is off guard from being affected by Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu, and when all of his power is stripped from him by the Silver Arrow. Now, am I saying that Ichigo doesn't scale to Yuha? No. Yuha very clearly thinks that Ichigo at his full power is something to be wary of and goes out of his way to break Ichigo's Bankai. This again being a Yuha that is much stronger than the one that fought either Yamamoto or Ichibei. At the very least, he is destroying or reshaping the Soul Society, Hueco and the world of the living planets. And there are some statements saying that he plans to destroy them, but others saying that he plans to merge them. And the two contradicting each other can get confusing. It would also make no sense for Yuha to want to destroy the other planets within the realms, as the flow of souls is only relegated to the Soul Society, the world of the living, and Hueco planets. Regardless, both Ichigo and Yuha outscale Bankai Yamamoto, who is stated to be able to destroy the Soul Society planet by a credible source, and Yuha does at the very least have multi-planet level manipulation or destruction, so at the barest of minimums, Ichigo should be planetary. With the higher interpretation, the canon film Memories of Nobody shows the new character, Senna, creating a new Valley of Screams with the energy from each of the blanks. The Valley of Screams is a dimension shown to contain some kind of a light source, more than likely being a sun, alongside being calced to needing star levels of power to create. And while there's no real way to scale earlier versions of Ichigo to it, characters like Butterfly Aizen should naturally be above it, as he is stated to transcend both Hollow and Soul Reapers, Senna herself being a Soul Reaper. Ichigo then starts dominating Aizen after his training in the Dangai, to which the Hogyoku within Aizen responds by evolving him once more. Ichigo can still keep up with him, but then decides to finish Aizen with the final Getsuga Tensho or Mugetsu. Mugetsu is stated to be the strongest thing in the story and to have an unrivaled power, even when compared to the Aizen who has evolved beyond his form that transcends all Soul Reapers and Hollows, meaning Dangai or Mugetsu Ichigo should already be in the higher tiers of star level attack potency, as he outscales Senna and the energy required to create the Valley of Screams. Ichigo then goes on to attain his true Shikai, which is stated multiple times to be his true unrestricted strength, the power he's been fighting with before being described as a mere fragment of his power that I could not contain, in the words of Zangetsu. This Ichigo should easily dwarf the likes of his Mugetsu state, but he can then stack Holification and a Bankai on top of that to fight Yuha, who may be able to destroy the 3 solar system size realms. And even if you somehow believe he can't, Yuha and Ichigo both still massively outscale Senna. True Shikai Ichigo being much stronger than he was in his Dangai form when he embarrassed Butterfly Aizen, who was stated to transcend Senna, yet still able to get stronger with 2 amps. Therefore, true Shikai Ichigo being a tier beyond Senna is not really far-fetched or unreasonable. Ichigo is easily planetary at the very least, and can be upwards of solar system levels of attack potency with the higher interpretation. Naruto Uzumaki was born with nothing to his name, as his parents were killed the day he was born, and his entire village resented him for years due to holding the nine-tailed fox demon deep within him, serving as a walking reminder of how the monstrous creature destroyed their home and killed so many all those years ago. This harsh reality deeply scarred him, as he spent every day of his young life alone and ostracized, having to pull pranks and turn himself into a troublemaker to attain even a modicum of attention, and despite everyone around him disapproving of, despising, or doubting him, Naruto would still have high aspirations for himself, as he sought to become Hokage, the leader of Konoha or the Leaf Village, but he'd still have a long way to go as just a genin, the lowest ranked of ninja, alongside his genin teammates Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke quickly became a rival to Naruto, but even through his slight animosity for him, due to everyone giving Sasuke so much seemingly unwarranted attention, Naruto also grew to love, respect, and even desire to be like him to a certain extent, as he grew to see Sasuke as his brother. brother. But while Naruto was growing rapidly and even attained his first summoning from training with Jiraiya, one of the 3 legendary Sannin, Sasuke grew his own hatred for Naruto, and a desire to get even stronger at an even faster rate, causing him to leave the Lee village entirely and subject himself to becoming Orochimaru's pupil, as well as his vessel. This threw Naruto into a debilitating depression, as he held himself responsible for failing to save Sasuke from the darkness, or what he would eventually learn is the cycle of hatred. Though this setback in his relationship with the one person he felt to be his brother undoubtedly further scarred him, Naruto had very little time to harp on Sasuke's departure, as a criminal organization of rogue shinobi known as the Akatsuki began hunting down the tailed beast, and by extension, the Jinchuriki that harbor them within their own bodies, Naruto in particular being a prime target, as he holds the nine-tailed fox. This forced Naruto to get stronger in the hopes of not only defending himself, but also to further his dream of becoming Hokage, and to stand alongside Sasuke once again as an equal. Though the Nine Tails would try time and time again to take advantage of his hopelessness or insecurities, Naruto would remain determined in his ninja way, eventually growing to surpass his teachers through attaining Sage Mode and defeating Pain, finally gaining respect among Konoha villagers. Akatsuki activity never ceased, however, even after Nagato's death, and it would only get worse with a declaration of war from Obito Uchiha. Someone Naruto would first have to master the power of the Nine Tails in order to even stand a modicum of a chance against. Throughout the Fourth Great Ninja War, Naruto would further master his link with Kurama as he befriended him, and Kurama grew to be inspired by Naruto, realizing he was nothing like the previous humans who just sought to control him, like Madara Uchiha, who Naruto would face in the war with Kurama and Sasuke at his side once more, alongside being bestowed power from the Sage of Six Paths in the hopes that he would break the cycle of hatred that ruined the lives of thousands of shinobi before him. But after stopping Kaguya's plot to resurrect, Naruto finally convinces Sasuke to let go of his vengeance and return to the village, ending the never-ending rotation of Samsara in the process with his Six Paths power, which is what we'll be going over now. Naruto's attack potency is a lot less complicated in comparison to Ichigo's, as there aren't multiple kinds of words or phrases that require interpretation or deconstruction, alongside data books and statements being more straightforward about what they believe characters throughout the story are capable of. Naruto has had a planet-level meta for quite some time now, and that usually revolves around statements like the half of the Nine Tails inside of Naruto stated to be able to turn the world to ash. Many try to claim that this statement is hyperbolic or argue that it uses the kanji for sekai in the original translation, so it must mean society. But these assumptions are honestly pretty baseless, and this half of the Nine Tails has already been shown to scale prominently to the stronger characters near the end of the war arc, let alone the full thing also stated to be able to blow away even the earth. Minato, who was one of the smartest characters in the series, thinks that Naruto will need to master the power of the Nine Tails to even remotely stand a chance against a weaker Obito than the one that Naruto fights later on, with other quite intelligent characters like Sakura saying that Obito has gone beyond being a danger to just Konoha, the strongest village, and is now a threat to the entire world. The Nine Tails is also quite a significant portion of the Ten Tails, the same Ten Tails that makes up a portion of Kaguya's power, and whose Biju bombs have energy comparable to that of a small planet. Jubito, who KCM or Kyuubi Chakra Mode 2 Sage Mode Naruto can contend with, says that he will obliterate the world. And Toneri, who is substantially weaker than the Naruto I am covering here today, says that he will destroy the Sage of Six Paths world before Naruto one-shots him in his base form. And Naruto even replies to this by telling him that he's not gonna let him destroy the earth, implying that he believes Toneri can do so. There are also things like the Divine Tree, but I think you get the point and click this video already knowing that Naruto is consistently planet level at the very least, and should be as early as he achieves KCM 2. Naruto goes on to get stronger and stronger as he can also stack Sage Mode onto this transformation and is then given Six Paths powers that make everything he's done before seem weak in comparison, being able to fight Three-Eyed Ten Tails Madara and Kaguya. Kaguya being a deity who can create and destroy entire time spaces. This is first stated by Kaguya, Zetsu, and Obito. However, these statements from these three characters are all mistranslations. None of these statements say the phrase time space, but they do still say space, and we already know that these dimensions have their own disconnected time from Earth anyway. Sasuke also states in chapter 708 or chapter 8 of Naruto Gaiden that they are time spaces. This raw scan translates to either space-time, time-space, or spatio-temporal, which Oxford Languages Dictionary defines as belonging to both space and time, or to space-time. Some also claim that she isn't creating these space-times, but the data book quite blatantly declares that she creates these dimensions as she pleases. An attempted counter to this statement would be pointing to the other areas in the same databook entry that states that she drags her opponents into these dimensions. But this isn't really a defeater, as she can still create the time spaces she is dragging people into, and the two don't contradict one another. Even if you don't believe she is creating these dimensions, she can still destroy them at will with statements like, "This is the start of a new space," when she's using her expansive True-Seeking Orb, or Kaguya stating, "This is my space." But just how big are these time spaces? Some say they're universe-sized, but I don't really feel like going there, as that's a more higher-balled interpretation and the term Uchu is never used to describe them, similarly to Bleach. We do at the very least see a sun in the manga, as well as another sun and a moon in the manga canon OVA the day Naruto became Hokage, suggesting that they have day and night cycles, alongside other stars present within the sky, meaning they should be a solar system in size at the very least. Toneri is then stated to have a chakra similar to Kaguya or even be stronger than her in promotional material for the last movie, with Naruto completely dominating Toneri in his base form. Naruto very easily reaches planetary tiers of attack potency as early as KCM2, but once he starts fighting Kaguya while getting even stronger with his 6 Paz powers, should be solar system level with a higher interpretation, then goes on to surpass this power entirely in just his base state from the last. Though I don't have as many issues with the more prominent speed arguments spread throughout the community as I do the more laughable attack potency ones, I do think there are still some things worth addressing. As I mentioned in my video, Can Obito beat all the Espada? Sero's being light speed is questionable, as the databook only describes them as a spiritual light, things that are spiritual being made of reishi, as described to us by Kisuke Urahara. Therefore, you cannot objectively prove that Seros have the properties or speed of real-world light. For all we know, Hollows, Arankars, and Vizards are really just harnessing and forming their spiritual pressure into something resembling a flash, similarly to how Ichigo describes the properties of the Getsuga Tensho after using it for the first time against Byakuya, who also describes the Getsuga Tensho as a flash. Similarly, the Negation is not as impressive as the Bleach community would lead you to believe. Though Yamamoto himself describes the Negation as light, we could only really give Yoroichi and Soifon the credit for dodging it. Shuhei and Rangiku watch Yoroichi warn Soifon and therefore everyone else before they both jump off of Aizen as fast as possible. The Negation light could be made of the same spiritual light and reishi particles that Seros are made from as well, since they are both used by the Menos Grande. Yamamoto also says that it is tangible and they can no longer reach them now that they're covered in the light. Real world light, for those of you who don't know, is intangible. Harinero dodging light is similarly questionable depending on how you choose to interpret the manga or anime, where he is very clearly caught in the light. We have no real way to concretely interpret movement in manga, and I've sat in calls where people are arguing about whether someone was blitzed on a manga page or not. However, I am not trying to say that Ichigo, especially true Shikai Ichigo, is not light speed, because he definitely is. It's just most of the arguments people use to say Shuhei Hisage is 46.k billion times FTL are honestly pretty absurd. You could say that the Ashwailan light is light speed or even faster by calculating the distance it takes to land in the Serite from the Soul Palace, as Ichigo does scale to and honestly beyond it, but this isn't the best way to get Ichigo to light speed either in my opinion, and is honestly kind of downplay. Personally, I believe the easiest way to scale Ichigo to faster than light is using Nanao and Shunsui reacting to Lilibaro in his Volt Standig that turns him into a body of pure light to the point that he even becomes intangible and lights up the dark sky of Shunsui's Bankai. Nanao says several times that he is using light-based attacks alongside being able to react to him while she is only a lieutenant who is scared of fighting on her own, and is vulnerable to being soul-crushed by just base Yamamoto, also stating that base Shunsui's Shunpo is too fast for her when they separate themselves to fight him. The same Shunsui who can react to Lily in his Volt Standig while he is heavily injured and only in his Shikai. While Nanao was more than ready to take on the Ryoka running across the Soul Society, she is still just a lieutenant who is weaker than the stronger lieutenants like Renji or potentially even someone like Rangiku. Kenpachi quite blatantly states that Ichigo is the level of a lieutenant or assistant captain during their encounter all the way back in the Soul Society arc. This Ichigo should be at least relativistic. He then goes on to train with Yoroichi and should be getting even faster once he attains his Bankai. This Ichigo here should definitively be the speed of light or faster than it. Ichigo continues to get even faster as he travels throughout Wako Mundo and fights a number of opponents who are able to blitz him, eventually erupting into his Vasto Lorde or full hollow state, which completely dominates second release Ulquiorra even while suppressed in a Ripshi Hakusho. I have no doubt in my mind that Ichigo during the Hueco arc with his Bankai or his Hollow Mask is reaching faster than light tiers of speed, if he isn't already from his fight with Byakuya. He then undergoes a hyperbolic time chamber style training in the Dangai over the course of 3 months to fight Aizen, an even stronger Aizen than the one repeatedly stated or implied to be able to clean up the entirety of the Espada in just his base form. Dangai Ichigo should be massively faster than light, but if you want to lowball it, we can say he's easily faster than light plus. After his full-bring Bankai is shattered by Jugram, Ichigo heads to the Soul Palace and attains his true Shikai, becoming even faster than before. He could then stack a Bankai and Holification on top of that. We are many layers of separation here between an Ichigo that fights Byakuya and the Soul Society and the one that can fight Yuha and his true Shikai, then stack 2 amps on top of it. There are also arguments that Ichigo has inaccessible speed because he can move in the Dangai, which his father describes as being cut off from time and space, but this is quickly shut down by Ishin openly describing how time functions in the Dangai not that long after this statement, likening it to the hyperbolic time chipper from Dragon Ball, as I mentioned earlier. Even disregarding this explanation, Ichigo alongside Ishin's bodies blatantly age as a result of their time in the Dangai, with both of them having hair grow out and Ichigo in particular getting taller, which wouldn't be possible if there was truly no time in the Dangai. Some also state that there is an infinite speed meta through Lilibaro and his Shrift, which he describes as leaving no room for concepts such as dodging, even though Shunsui literally dodges it. These are reaches in my opinion, but Ichigo and other Bleach top tiers should easily be above the speed of light. The only thing that could contradict this scaling is the databook statement saying Ichigo moves like lightning against Byakuya. But for one, you could simply argue that this doesn't have to be his cap, and even if you do concede that he can only move at lightning speed during this encounter, you could simply stack the multipliers given to us throughout the fights following where he gets much faster and more than likely still reach this interpretation anyway. You'd have to make sure, however, that the multipliers directly apply to speed. For example, something like Shunsui's Bankai more than likely does not amplify his strength or his speed, and is more so an ability, as opposed to Ichigo's Bankai, which is stated directly to increase his physical stats. Regardless, Ichigo should be massively faster than light in his Dangai form, and gets even faster once he realizes his dormant power and attains his true Shikai. This section is just going to be pretty straightforward and to the point, as I've gone over these arguments several times with others. I'm tired of people downplaying Naruto's speed, especially in arcs as early as part 1 where relativistic to light speeds are pretty common among the stronger characters within the story, even at this early period. Despite being heavily fatigued, a Genin Kid Kakashi is known for being able to react to and cut through a lightning bolt, already putting anyone who scales to this Kakashi, pretty much 90% of fighters throughout the story, in the ranges of massively hypersonic. Kakashi then only gets faster as he gets older, and as he gets older, he then goes on to fight characters like Itachi and Orochimaru who are able to completely embarrass him to the point where he almost questions his worth as a shinobi entirely. Itachi in particular, who blitzes Kakashi several times, once with a clone and another time when he waves hand seals so fast that the strongest Jonin from the strongest village with a Sharingan, a dojutsu that is specifically intended to increase your speed and perceptive capabilities, is unable to see the seals and is in utter shock at the speed of Itachi's hands. What's even more impressive about this is that Itachi is holding back on Kakashi when he blitzes him, as it is in character for him to do so. It is also in this fight that Itachi, who is again holding back, shoots his water bullets that the databooks state to move at the speed of light, with Kakashi then reacting to it using his water wall. The reason why Itachi holding back is so important is not only because it inherently means he can perform much better than he already is now, but also because it means he would not use an attack that he doesn't think Kakashi wouldn't be able to properly defend himself against, as he doesn't want to hurt Kakashi or any other Leaf Ninja. So anyone who scales to this Kakashi should be relativistic to the speed of light. I'd also like to add in here that Zetsu's statement regarding Kirin, saying it is faster than the speed of sound, is not a defeater for any of the characters at this period of the story reaching relativistic or light speeds, and only a Muppet would try to unironically use this as such. While the statement is technically true, Zetsu saying it's faster than the speed of sound doesn't necessarily have to mean that's where it caps, as the databooks repeatedly describe Kirin as lightning, and Sasuke literally summons it from the clouds. But lightning speed Kirin is also not a defeater for Itachi reaching light speeds, as he was heavily weakened against Sasuke, coughing up blood, barely able to see, and essentially idol, as he is also holding back on Sasuke and desires for him to be the one to kill him. There are also instances of Kirin being described as lightspeed or a flash in the databooks, but I think that somewhat contradicts Kirin's whole narrative of Sasuke taming the very lightning from the clouds above. I also think using Haku to scale Naruto characters early on to the speed of light is also redundant and unnecessary, as the databook only states that Haku could potentially move at the speed of light when using his ice mirrors, meaning he is capable of it but isn't always doing such. Therefore, you can't really scale anyone Haku fights to this light speed movement, but he is also blatantly holding back on both Naruto and Sasuke, but you could never prove or produce an instance where this kid Naruto and Sasuke react to this Haku's light speed movement. However, there is nothing to contradict this Kakashi and characters who scale to him reaching these tiers of speed, as later on there's even more feats as well as statements to suggest that Naruto characters are this fast, this early on. Like Darui's laser circus being able to control multiple light rays emitted from the hands, as well as Killer Bee and the 4th Raikage, who are stated to be able to move at the speed of light. Sasuke is then able to react to the Raikage at point blank range while he is blatantly trying to kill him. The Raikage is then shown later getting straight up blitzed by KCM Naruto and even Jonin Minato. Though Naruto here is already faster than light by blitzing the stated light speed Raikage and being much faster than Kakashi, he only gets faster through the war arc as he masters his link with Kurama, getting enough chakra to amp thousands of shinobi to be 3 times faster than Kakashi in his own words. Meaning that Naruto could potentially amp himself by thousands of times using Kurama's chakra to be thousands of times faster than Kakashi, who is already faster than the Kakashi who reacts to Itachi's water bullets, stated to be light speed. Naruto then gets even faster after he meets with Hagoromo, who grants him 6 Paz powers, and after gaining them, he stacks another chakra cloak on top of his already insane base state that was pressuring one Rinnegan Jubi Madara into escaping with Kamui to get his second eye. Similarly to Ichigo, we are many layers of separation between Kakashi, who is relative to Zabuza, alongside conceding inferiority to Haku, and the 6 Pass Sage Mode Naruto, who can fight with 3-eyed Madara, and Kaguya, who is described as far greater than Madara by Sasuke. Simply put, KCM2 Naruto and anyone else at his level and speed should easily be massively faster than light, as he is already much faster than KCM1 Naruto, who can blitz the stated light speed Raikage. Naruto being massively faster than light should honestly already be community consensus, and if you are still denying that Naruto is this fast at this point, you are a caveman behind with the times who refuses to accept scaling that is this blatant. The power cliff between just KCM1 and KCM2 on its own is already absurd, let alone the difference between KCM1, who is getting slapped around by Edo Itachi, and then base 6 Paz, who has one-eyed Jubidara running for his life, and can then stack a cloak on top of that. 6 Paz Sage Mode Naruto is massively faster than light, and there is nothing that contradicts it. Before we get into who exactly wins, we do have to discuss some things that are old, outdated arguments that I can't believe people still use today when discussing this or any other Bleach Crossverse matchup. For one, Naruto can see Ichigo. Naruto characters have several soul-based astral attacks. Naruto has seen his own soul before and even somehow grabbed it. He sees Minato's spirit when the Edo Tensei are desummoned, and Minato's soul still has no arms after his body was hit by the Truth-Seeking Orbs. Substantially weaker characters like Orochimaru are able to fight against and prevent their souls from being taken by the Death God. Later on, Naruto's clones clash with the Limbo clones that are on an entirely different plane of existence, yet he is still able to interact with and fight them, let alone Bleach characters who are still present in the same dimension, but just invisible. There's also the argument that chakra is spiritual in nature, but you get the idea. Naruto should be able to see, interact with, or at the very least sense Ichigo. But even disregarding all of that just for a second, how insecure are you in your side of the argument that you can't even engage in a hypothetical where Naruto can see Ichigo, even without this overwhelming level of evidence that he can? Ichigo also cannot soul crush Naruto. Not only does Ichigo never do so in character, but soul crushing is also incredibly inconsistent throughout the series. Captain class Soul Reapers just standing around are enough to instantly crush hollows, yet not the little girl who is weaker than them. When Yami and Ulquiorra first arrive at the world of the living, they do not instantly crush the regular humans that approach the crater to investigate. We'll bring Ichigo, who can fight with a suppressed Yuha and is stronger than a majority of the Soul Reapers that were present when the Hollows in Karakura Town were crushed, cannot just instantly crush the Hollows that attack Shino and Ryunosuke. So not only does Ichigo never soul crush anyone in character, but people just getting instantly soul crushed from being near a Bleach character isn't really consistent and cannot be done if the two are relative, which Naruto and Ichigo are. Once again, Ichigo being universal makes no sense, as none of the realms are infinite, and only the Soul King in his prime really has that universe-busting lore to him, with pretty much no one else in the series comparing. It is true that Ichigo was considered by Ichibei to be a Soul King candidate. However, this is only in reference to a Soul King that has been severely maimed and disfigured, and only now serving as the linchpin keeping each of the realms separated, as well as regulating the flow of souls to the Soul Society. If you just completely disregard the lore of the Soul King, as well as the difference in Uchu and Sekai to say,
Yeah, Shikai Ichigo can stop the Sogyoku that can destroy the Soul Society. He's universal.
Naruto himself can also be scaled to universal by similarly taking the maximum interpretations of Kaguya's dimensions, as they are disconnected from the time on Earth, alongside consistently being described as and shown to be time spaces. Any attack potency meta that Ichigo can reach, Naruto can reach as well. Even with the whole Ichigo has fate manipulation meme, Naruto also defies and manipulates fate by ending the everlasting cycle of hatred and altering the destiny of Indra and Ashura, fighting for an eternity through reincarnation. Though, if these two are relative, both reaching bare minimum planetary and up to solar system level attack potency with massively faster than light speeds, then who takes it? I believe it ultimately comes down to each of their arsenals. Bleach is known for being absurdly hacked out, with even weaker characters like Baragon able to age anything with a simple touch, and geniuses like Urahara creating devices that fit in the palm of your hand, yet are able to passively rewrite reality. With this being the case, it is unfortunate to say that, despite being literally every single race in the series, Soul Reaper, Hollow, Quincy, and Fullbringer, Ichigo has no hacks. Throughout all 700 plus chapters of Bleach, Ichigo has only used a single hacks ability, being Blut Vein or Vena, but that was subconsciously and he never does it again, meaning that it's not even in character for him to do so. Naruto on the other hand has things like his True-Seeking Orbs which attack on a spiritual level, with Ichigo himself being a spirit. You could argue that Zanpakuto operate in a similar manner, and some even claim that they negate durability, but this could only really apply to characters that do not have astral awareness or defense, which Naruto does, even kicking away a True-Seeking Orb with his feet. There are also his infamous shadow clones that he can make thousands of, even as a child who hasn't graduated from the academy and barely has any control over his massive pool of chakra originating from his Uzumaki heritage and being a Jinchuriki. When people imagine the shadow clones, they picture them as something you could pinch for it to disperse into smoke, which is true in part 1 and even some of Shippuden, but by the end of the series, these things are each just as strong as Naruto is himself. Madara's limbo clones that are weaker than the ones Naruto can contend with are shown to one-shot tail beasts. Naruto's are able to defeat the third Raikage as well as react to and fight with Kaguya later on, to the point she'd rather retreat to another time space than fight them. Even an experienced Jonin chose to save one of Naruto's shadow clones from Madara's meteors over the lives of his own soldiers because he had assessed that Naruto's clone was a more valuable asset to the fight than they were. Naruto additionally possesses some form of reality warping with creation of all things, which is described as being able to turn fantasy into reality. He also has some godly regeneration, capable of healing entire organs and limbs in seconds. Ichigo shows some regeneration as well in his fully holified Vasto Lorde state, but both of them have been shown to have some amazing stamina. Naruto is repeatedly described to have a limitless pool of stamina throughout the series, and Ichigo is able to train for months on end without stopping. While these two are incredibly relative in their physical attributes, I think Naruto ultimately takes the edge due to his superior abilities. I'm not sure why people claim that Ichigo has better abilities than Naruto when, no hate, all he does is slash his sword and say Getsuga Tensho, this being something even Yuha calls him out on. Naruto in comparison has these absurd abilities that are good for not only fighting groups of people, but even more so for a one-on-one versus someone like Ichigo who has no counter for them. I fail to see what Ichigo will be able to do against someone with precognition through Sage Mode, constantly reading his attacks as well as regenerating from them in seconds, or potentially hundreds of thousands of these people who are relative to himself ganging up on him all at once. Especially when 5 Sternritter, who are substantially weaker than him and weaker than Naruto and his clones would be, were still able to get in the way of Ichigo trying to get to Yuha. And Ichigo has been shown to struggle against people with precognition in the past, as seen when Yuha opens his almighty eyes against him. Even if you think Naruto's precognition isn't as good as Yuha's, which it isn't, let's it's definitely not. Let's be real for a second. He can still clone himself hundreds of thousands of times over. Each of these clones have this precognition and the ability to sense the oncoming negative emotions in Ichigo's attacks. I just don't see any way for Ichigo to counter Naruto's abilities that could very quickly overwhelm him. As it stands right now with the information we have with these two versions of the characters, I have to give it to Naruto based on his abilities. Does this mean Ichigo loses to everyone in Naruto? No. Anyone that this Naruto can beat, this Ichigo should be able to beat too. Does this mean Naruto can solo Bleach? No. Anyone who is relative to or stronger than Ichigo with actual abilities like Aizen would be a problem, and I don't see what Naruto would ever be able to do against Yuha's Almighty. But when it comes down to 6-Pass Sage Mode Naruto versus Horn of Salvation Bankai Ichigo, Naruto wins. Maybe the anime will come out with some crazy statement that changes that. Maybe the Hell Arc will come out with some new information that makes Hokage Naruto versus adult Ichigo more interesting. Who knows? But I'm excited to watch the second core of the 1000-Year Blood War anime and for the Bleach manga to return in some capacity, as well as for the Boruto manga to return in August of this year with its time skip. If you disagree with me, that's fine. This is all fictional and all up to interpretation. We can still be friends, and I still like both of these characters and these series. And if you do as well, I plan to make more inverse, cross-verse, and narrative analysis videos for Naruto, Boruto, and Bleach in the future, so it may be worthwhile to subscribe for free to be notified of my future videos and projects. If you think I missed something or you have something else you would like to add to the discussion, feel free to let me know in the comments below along with any suggestions you might have. Like this video to support the channel and let me know that this is the type of content you want to see from me in the future. Thank you all for watching and have a blessed day.
Let it roll!